Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode. I'm back with Varsha Mathur today. So, Varsha is a dating and relationship coach, and it's one of the. I think it would be my first conversations in last 40 episodes. I think 40 to 45 episodes. I'm speaking about relationships. I'm really happy about it. So, thank you, Varsha, for being here. It's my pleasure to have you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure to have you. Before beginning anything, getting into any other topic in conversation, it would be great. It would be wonderful if you could speak about yourself and what you do. And yeah, that would be great.
Sure. It's my favorite topic, right? Talking about myself.
Of
You
course.
are just kidding. Yeah. So, like you said, I'm a dating and relationship coach. I work with singles and I work with couples to actually build really solid, healthy relationships outside of societal pressures and taboos from the stigmas that people have around dating and relationships.
Mhm.
And especially nowadays with the apps, like there's endless swiping, there's texting, so really discovering how to break free from that and actually have authentic conversations, authentic connections. And with couples, the work never stops. You really have to continue the work of building trust and communication and happiness. And so that's what I do with couples. And I started this really because as a South Asian, growing up in America even, excuse me,
No worries.
I had to overcome a divorce, be back in a dating pool, and found that I struggled with the society around me telling me what to do, telling me what not to do. The decision alone of leaving a relationship that was the societal's norm was rough. And when I began my journey, I started blogging. And that's what led me to see that people were coming out of the woodwork and saying, like, thank you for sharing your story. How can you help me? And that's really what generated my coaching business, was having people say, like, you're not alone. And therefore I could tell them that they're not alone.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Happy to hear. Happy to hear. Yeah. You as a relationship and a dating coach, how in today's how complicated, how confusing has dating a relationship had, getting into a relationship is a huge thing. Let it be any country, let it be India, let it be America, let it be any other country. It has become complicated. It is going to become more complicated in the coming days and coming future and all these things, because things coming up and changing, evolving things. How do you see this? How do you define relationship and dating at to be specific in today's day and time?
Yeah. So first of all, it doesn't have to be complicated and confusing. It really doesn't. And I do know that it does seem that way for a lot of people right now. What I'm understanding your question to be is, like, actually, why is it this way? Is that your question?
Yeah.
Well, I think there are so many layers to this. From a Indian perspective, it is that the culture is shifting.
Okay.
And so there is the pull of traditional lifestyle, traditional marriage and family, and what that means, versus people who get to go out and do what is, I guess, loosely called the Western way, like actually dating and meeting someone that you personally are comfortable with, and getting to know them and then introducing them to the family. So there is this sort of tug of war for individuals, tug of wars for a society, which adds this added layer of confusion, quite frankly. And I think that's completely normal. So one of the things in my coaching is to really learn to navigate that and decide who you want to be about those circumstances, because they don't need to be they don't need to butt heads. There can actually be a healthy way to merge that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second thing is, with the online dating culture, with all the apps, what happens is people feel like there is another better opportunity just one swipe away. Around the next corner, I will meet another person. And what if they're better than the one that I have in front of me?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
that mentality is exhausting because it never ends.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, true, true. And I love the word tug of war which you used there. It's interesting. Why people struggle finding, a partner, which of course, today things are evolving. A person you meet 10 years back could not be the same person 10 years after, and it becomes harder for you to live with the same person without these ideologies, and it changes, and you can't live. I, of course, understand that. So how do you think somebody can find an ideal relationship? Not maybe, no,
Mhm.
I would not quote it as perfect, but I would morely say it is ideal. How do you think a person could have an ideal relationship?
Well, look, if I had the magic pill answer to that, I wouldn't have a job, number one. And I would happily share it because I want everyone to have that experience, but it is not a black and white answer.
Yeah.
But what I will say is that the number one issue that comes in front of most of my clients, and including myself, was the timelines and pressures that we put in order
Mm,
to meet that criteria of our
okay.
life, and feeling like, oh, well, I'm 25 or I'm 35 or whatever the age is for you. So therefore, my life must look a certain way. And it actually becomes very difficult to be your authentic self if you're putting yourself in under so much pressure. And some people put it on themselves, other people are getting it from family members. But I think that's the biggest challenge, and overcoming that is what creates authentic connection.
Okay, okay. And you were quoting about the term, you were speaking, not the term, I would say you were speaking about this thing was, how society wishes to you be, like, as you were speaking about your divorce, and you finding and you being in the dating circle again, and then you
Mhm.
starting blogging. So before that, when you just took divorce, of course, what was your parents reaction, a family's reaction more,
Mhm.
as an Indian, because it's very, very, I think I feel it's going to be the same over there also, that it's very, very, it's very taboo stigma, and there is a lot of things that, oh, how could you, just try to work it out, how could you take a divorce,
Mhm.
and then you entering
Yeah.
into other relationship, and then you find, living with other person, or marrying anything, vice versa, whatever. So how about that,
Yeah.
the man's family, I would say, reacting to your divorce, and you marrying or staying and living with that person?
Yeah.
How was that? How was the both of the situations happening?
Okay. That's a lot. And I look forward to it. But yeah, so where to start? So, luckily for me, I had the most incredible in laws with my ex husband and my current husband. I mean, my in laws are just so supportive. And even back then, when we were having difficulties in our marriage, there was this incredible push. I mean, it was probably hard for them to understand, but at the same time, there was an incredible reminder that they're there to support the relationship despite troubles.
Hmm.
And then, as far as I know, with my ex husband's family, I don't actually know what they felt once it was final, because we weren't in communication after that. But I must say that during the process, there was nothing but love and respect. Though I think internally they probably had some hardships. My family, I like to explain it as like three tiers essentially, because there's the extended family slash society, right? The people who are not necessarily close to you, but at the same time close to you. And
Mm,
then there's the like insular family. So my siblings, my parents, my very close uncles and aunts. And there's then the elders, which is a whole different territory because they don't always know what's going on, but you also have this level of respect where you want them to be in the
mm,
know.
yeah.
You want them to be part of your life. So I think for my grandfather, especially at that time, I only had one living grandparent. And I think he struggled with it quite a bit. Like, I don't think he ever really understood, even after I got remarried, I don't think he understood what happened and why. And he never showed me disrespect or anything like that. But there was definitely a shift and change in our relationship.
Yeah.
And it changed from, this, cute little Nana and Varsha relationship to something a little bit different. He saw me differently. And with my parents, they were incredible, always supportive. They didn't understand. Like, I actually give them a lot of credit because they were constantly there for me, despite probably having a lot of fears. And it was same thing with my siblings. You know, it was really hard for everybody to understand what was going on, but they always were reminded that I was their first priority.
Mm.
Um, and then the extended family, it was mixed. Some people were very mean about it, and some people were like, look, hey, we're supporting you, but really we know that we can't do anything for you.
Yeah.
So kind of a long-winded answer, but it's multi-tiered essentially.
Yeah. True. Yeah. And would you wish to share, what if you wish to share what
Mhm.
happened wrong, which had to, you had to take a divorce, if you're comfortable with it. Otherwise,
Yeah.
we can move forward. That's not a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say it briefly because it's really hard to explain until you're in it. But there was just no real click between me and my ex-husband. I think there was compatibility. I think there was a lot of connection on different levels, but we just saw the world in completely different ways. And I point to things like education, money, respect for family and friends. These were all things that we had values around, but they were slightly different.
Mm.
It's a lot to get into, and every couple is different. So
Yeah.
there's really no way to promise that one thing will be for sure. But what I do emphasize is that I had gut feelings the whole time that I completely disregarded out of fear of, again, societal pressures. And had I been more confident and secure in knowing who I was and who I was going to be, it would have been a totally different
Okay.
scenario.
Okay. And do you agree upon this point, that difference of ideologies could even make you both apart? And you could do you think ideological differences also could be a reason for somebody taking a divorce or breaking up with him or her, or with their partners?
Yeah, I wish there was an easy answer to this. I think the answer is it depends. It depends on the weight that you give to that ideology
Hmm.
and also the respect that you have for the person despite their ideologies. I look at like somebody like we can use my grandfather's example. Like I love him and respect him despite his ideologies. That can also be the case in a romantic relationship, but it's a choice to show up every day from respect rather than judgment on the ideology.
Yeah, so true. And there was an interesting study done in the country of Hong Kong and China. And I think there was some Korean South Korea, of course. So there was three countries. There was a research done there, that people started filing divorces after the lockdowns were ending up in these countries. More people filed divorces, and after some time these people wanted, no, they didn't want a divorce. So do you think sometime, some kind of, of course, when people were in their houses and they were seeing their partners, speaking
Mhm.
with them, and uh, this was I just wanted to get your thoughts upon this. Was taking decisions rationally, just in some quick, like a tea, just put the bag and put the water and the tea is ready. Taking decisions like that, is it right into any kind of relationship?
Yeah, I don't think it's a matter of like the speed of the decision. I think it's a matter of the weight that it carries on you. So it sounds like in these pandemic divorces, um, my guess is based on my complete assumptions around, Indian, Chinese, and Korean lifestyles, is that this structure of what your life should look like is very easily delineated. It's very easy to follow a certain structure to your life. And when all of the momentum of things have stopped and you actually have to be with the person in
Mm.
very close proximity, you might be awakened to that deeper value system that you have that's outside of just everyday life, timeline, and schedule. And so you see who this person that you married really is. And that can be kind of confronting and probably difficult for a lot of people. Would the relationship go back to being the way it needs to be when the pandemic close downs are done? Maybe. But at the same time, will you be able to go back to not having seen what you recognized about the distance between the two of you?
Yeah. True. Okay, interesting. And what does some holds some people back from having successful relationship? Why some relationship just fail? What happens? What goes wrong?
Oh man, I think there's like an array of things that can go wrong. I mean, gosh, I wish I had an answer for such a question, but consider that the asking of that question actually implies wanting black and white answers. And if you live life thinking that there is black and white only, then it's going to be tough. Relationships are the beauty of the gray space, you know? There's really no way to be 100% of anything in a relationship. It's always going to be um, gray areas.
Okay.
You have to be willing to be with the gray areas.
Okay. And what do you think? What some kind of essential things does a relationship needs to work? Of course, it should be communication, having foods together, or
Mhm.
something like that. What else do you recommend and should be happening, which could have a better relationship?
Yeah, one thing that was actually one of my favorite things that was said to me a long time ago was that relationships should be 100%, but that doesn't mean that it has to be 50-50. I
Hmm.
think one of the greatest things in relationships is being able to know when your partner might be at 40% and you need to be at 60, or someone's at 90 and you have to pull up the person at 10, and being willing to be on that like sort of seesaw all the time and not expect it to be a perfect 50-50 like give and take. And then, like you said, things like respect and communication go a long way in every single aspect of a relationship. And my definition of a relationship is actually to be in communication and to be in connection with the person. And so, what is it going to take and what is it going to look like? You get to define that for
Hmm.
yourselves.
Hmm. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. So
Mhm.
how can somebody recognize uh, that their relationship is not right for them, and it's not more than being right, it's toxic.
Mhm. Yeah. So, of course, there are like red flags that are of toxicity, right? Like abuse, maybe some addiction problems. Those kinds of things are sort of more the obvious red flags, you know, to protect yourself around, make sure you're seeking the resources to support yourself around. The other thing really is to be in tune with your um, intuition. A lot of times people want to look again for these like black and white answers, like, oh God, please give me a sign. If he doesn't pick up his chai this way, then I'll know that he's not the right guy for me. Well, the truth is that God has given us this intuition, this inner voice. And the more that you tune into that, the more likely you're going to be able to see what's right and what's wrong for you. Because that same person that's wrong for you can be right for somebody else.
Else. Yeah, true. And as we were just speaking about abuse and toxicity, sometimes you just love that person, but you understand that person is not right for you. So what, but then that becomes a very very huge thing on your mind, and you are in some kind of trauma. And
Mm-hmm.
how can somebody heal from the trauma? How can somebody heal
Mm-hmm.
from that, thinking about that person which she loved with whole heart, but because of things
Mm-hmm.
it didn't work out? So what things, why, how can somebody heal from those traumatized relationship
Yeah, I
breakups?
mean, I think,
Yeah.
yeah. So a few things that I highly recommend is to really allow yourselves to be with the emotions instead of suppressing them. Of
Mhm.
course, get the support that you need. Like for some people, this can even cause things, emotional upset to the point of maybe needing therapy and counseling. But even on a more simpler level, being with your emotions and allowing yourself the space, but at the same time acknowledging it and deciding that it's going to be a temporary time that you're going to be with these emotions, and then to move forward by using your friends, using art, music, creativity, the things that actually can pull you out of the mood. because it sounds like whether it was your choice or their choice, the commitments were just not aligned. And so really this is about actually allowing your emotions to take their course, building yourself back up with all the tools that, you know, people use, journaling, friends, family, and then really choosing what you're going to be committed to next. It sounds like, you know, if you're single and you want to be in a relationship where the other person doesn't leave you, then, you know, looking at what is it going to take for you to like dust your shoulders off and get back into the game.
Mhm. And how was the healing? Did you have hard time, living your husband back and getting into and your normal life? And how was that whole movement and whole that phase for you? And how did you come out of that? And you're being wonderful today and speaking with me.
Yeah. It's just, I wish I had coaching back then. It would have been so much easier. There's like a slew of tools that I have now that help people put aside their past, not in a way where it's not gonna always be a part of you, but in a way that allows you to move forward in a healthy way. But for me, it was very much a struggle. I thought I was done. I just never thought I could be married again. I never thought that people would want to date me now because I had this black cloud over me. The divorced Indian girl is a terrible cloud. And I really was devastated for a long time, went through a little bit of depression, got the support that I needed after some encouragement from my family. And eventually when I started dating again, when I started putting myself out there, because people did encourage me, I was still very young. People did encourage me to go out and meet people. And I was just like, fine, I'll do that, but I'm not going to get married. I was tarnished on the concept of marriage. But by putting myself out there, it allowed me to meet my husband.
Mm.
And when you meet the kind of person that has the level of click, the friendship, the respect, the compatibility on that sort of undefinable level, marriage is like not even like it's like an obvious thing, you know. And not, you can call it marriage, you can call it life partnership, whatever, depending on your own ideologies. But being with somebody forever when you click to that level is a non-issue. It's like a given.
Yeah. And what do you think you learned from
Mhm.
the past relationships you went through and had to end up because of the many any kind of reasons? So what did you personally
Mhm.
learn about those relationships, and how do you try to implement those things which didn't work out and make to try harder and push harder, like in this sense,
Mhm.
give your 100% from your point to your romantic relationship.
Yeah. So I think number one is never feel alone. Even in your romantic partnerships, sure, you may not want to like divulge all the secrets and details of your partnership to other people, but to actually sometimes know that there's support outside of your relationship for you, so that you can actually show up to the relationship with strength and confidence. The people that give you that strength and confidence don't have to just be your partner. So I think really finding, even, I mean, this goes for any relationship, whether it's with your career, with your friends, you know, to really know that there is a support system out there for you and you don't have to be alone. I think that's probably the thing that still to this day gets me through anything. Is my tendency is to always be like, I can handle it. I'm strong. Like, let me push through. And the push through mentality, the willpower mentality, is exhausting. It actually dies out over time. So the idea is to constantly be building yourself this bag of tricks, if you will, to have support nearby at any given time. And it can look so different than what you might think at first.
Okay. And what would be what is what one question do you get from your clients, and they ask about, like, hey Varsha, I'm feeling so bad about this. Hey Varsha, I'm struggling with this. Hey Varsha, I'm going through this. So what are the very common questions you get from your clients? And if you think, so if one or two you could put these questions over and could answer them, it would be great.
Yeah. So the first thing I want to say up front is that with coaching, it's distinct from therapy in that my clients are seen as whole and complete, and that they actually don't have problems, but they want more out of life. So when they come to me with issues or a request for coaching on a particular topic, it's really more about how do I get to where I want to be? So yes, there are struggles and challenges, but I just like to put out there that these are it's easy to overcome them. So the first thing that usually comes up is my parents are pressuring me to get married and I can't find anyone. Okay. And the people that they're introducing me to are not matching and clicking with me. And the dating apps, I just can't seem to get past 2 or 3 messages, calls, dates, whatever. Everyone's at a different stage. So this is where I've actually begun doing some mediations between parents and their adult children who are in the dating age and marriageable age, because setting some parameters and boundaries and communicating with your parents is so daunting, right? Like many Indian families, this is not a topic that you talk about. It's just the way it is, Yeah. So actually getting on the same page with your parents and doing so in a delicate way is kind of critical, especially in these what I call like more transitional families where most of my clients are successful, career-minded people who all their life were told to study hard, get into the best schools, like get the best jobs. And they did that. And then a month into the first job, the parents are like, okay, do you have a boyfriend? Tell me, like, you let me know, we're ready to get you married now. And they're like, oh, well, crap, I didn't know that was allowed because, I was told to focus on my studies. And so either, yeah, and a lot of people do, right? Like people date when they're in studies and stuff, but it's kind of like this automatic shift that happens for the parents and the family, just the dynamic changes. So I think number one is to really get on the page with your parents, let them know about your process, let them know about what you're thinking. And this is kind of where coaching and some support really helps if you're having trouble with the communication, because not all parents are going to understand. The lingo is different. If you dating, what does that even mean? If you say I'm going out with somebody that I met on an app, that could sound completely absurd to somebody who had an arranged marriage. So really learning what the communication style is of your parents in order to be the person that initiates that connection. And then also just learning for yourself how you're going to show up to whether it's matrimonial sites, dating apps, or introductions from family. Like, how are you going to show up as your version of you that is authentic without feeling the pressures? And that's not something I can answer on a podcast, unfortunately, because it's different for everybody. But it is the number one tool in coaching to really figure out who you're going to be about the process.
Okay. And just one question I just want to ask, do American Indians also have matrimony sites?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So a lot of them are also using Shadi.com, Bharat Matrimonial.
Okay. That's funny.
Yeah, people. It's not for everybody. And there are also matchmakers who work with like Indian-born people, here as well. And, I think, what has you asked that? What makes that funny? I'm curious.
I just thought, as you go to a different country, you do work with people, live with people over there. So I thought there are some things which don't exist. Sorry. Listening you speaking about matrimony site was fun for me and funny because it has become a very absurd thing. I know these things do exist in the rural part of India. So, but day by day passing, it has become just really weird and absurd. It's becoming really absurd and weird in the urban India. So, matrimony as a thing is like, oh, it's really weird. Oh, you still search there and see there. It's weird. Yeah. So just wanted to.
It's so interesting because, and I remind myself of this often. So my grandparents immigrated here in the 1960s, which is, pretty unusual. And so my mom and my Mausies and stuff were all raised here in the United States. But what happens is that my grandparents brought 1950s and 60s India to the United States.
Yeah.
And so they raise their families with these very traditional views. So when
Yeah.
I go to India, I was born in the 80s, I go to India and I'm like, oh my gosh, these people are like way cooler and way more modern and even more risk takers than me
Yeah.
because I was raised by 1950s India.
Yeah.
And so it's really amazing to see that transition. But for every person, now my family's also very modern, very advanced in their thinking. I mean, I think um, compared to most Indian families in the States, but I think for every generation that came 3 generations ago, there's someone coming even today and raising their families. And so they're from all sorts of villages, all sorts of education levels, all sorts of backgrounds. And so these traditional families still exist even here in the States,
Yeah.
and as do the modern ones.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's still here.
Yeah, and that's interesting. Countries where these are countries like France, where there is huge immigration from Turkey, huge immigration from Algeria, and there's such countries, and even as you stated about states, um, you know. So these countries, what happens? As you already said, that we as we go there at the time, like for example, as your grandparents
Mm-hmm.
came there in 1960, they got that ideology of India at that moment. So at that point of
Mm-hmm.
time, what was India at that time? It's not the same India. Ideologies are changed, people have changed. What my
Mm-hmm.
grandmother would be is, it would what my grandmother would be speaking about, your grandfather would not be. So it really has changed.
Yeah.
And it's really wonderful to just record this and hear about this. And
Yeah.
Yeah, and what would be your advice to anybody to just be themselves in any other, in any relationships, to be themselves and be real to their self, and then
Mm-hmm.
not become any kind of puppet or any kind of just be happy in front of the person, but sad innerly or from inner
Yeah.
part of the heart. So what would be your advice to them?
Oh my gosh, so many things. But I think the overarching thing is to really get present to your identity, emotional identity, cultural identity, and allow that to be different and unique. Because as soon as the comparisons come in, as soon as I should be a certain way, that vocabulary of should is very toxic to the individual. So I think that the real key here is to really be self-accepting, and to take a deep dive into recognizing who you are. And there are a number of exercises that can help with that. But that inner work of self-acceptance, it goes a long way, and it's becoming more and more acceptable, I think, among men, among different ages, among different societies. But for a long time, it was suppressed. So I think that's a great place to start.
Okay, okay. And I think we have spoken about and discussed about wonderful things about relationship and dating. So before ending up, would you like to speak upon any particular thing, or would like to add upon anything, or do you wish to speak about anything? You can just go ahead and do it now. No worries. Anything.
I mean, if you're cool with it, I would love to share about my services. Actually,
Sure, sure. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I do work with people one-on-one, and also have groups where I coach women separately and men separately, people identifying in that gender and looking for partners. And before I work with anybody, I start by doing what I call a discovery session, which is completely complimentary. You can book it using my website or on Instagram at Coaching by Varsha. And I encourage people to just kind of see whether coaching is the thing for you, because a lot of times we get stuck in cycles and patterns. And if you're willing to actually make a shift and change in your life once and for all, so you can get the results that you want and not be in those patterns, this is a great place to start. I use a coach myself. It's a continual journey to kind of want more from your life. So yeah, I'm here and I'm happy to work with people. I do work with people virtually, internationally, and yeah, would love to hear from you
Okay.
all.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, thank you very much for being here. It was wonderful. It was amazing, and having amazing conversation about relationship. I just wish to go more deep, but time has its own limits and things. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it was wonderful having you. It was great having you. I enjoyed it personally. Really, thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much. I have to also add that your questions were really great.
Thank you.
I know that very much like fly at the seat of your pants, and you don't really, I know that you didn't plan a lot of this, but you have such depth in your questions. And I really love the work that you're doing. I think it's really exciting to see someone at your stage in life kind of making a statement and doing your thing that really serves you. So kudos for that.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.